Welcome to DevReady Podcast, where we're helping non-techs build better tech. Today, we're once again joined by Stewart Marshall. I think it's third time lucky for Stu on the DevReady Podcast. He's a SaaS and commercial software advisor. And we actually caught up last week on the off chance I was in Sydney and he was out buying a pair of pants, I think you were. Yes, buying a pair of pants. We had some lunch. Yeah. Had a really good conversation around value and what people are really looking for when they look to solve problems with tech. So I thought why not pick up the conversation on that and dig into that a little bit more. Stu, what have you been up to?
I'm writing another book. This one currently called Kick Some SaaS.
Kick Some SaaS, I like it.
A working subtitle of a leadership guide to global impact at scale or something like that. I don't know. Trying to align my interests in software and all things technological with actually doing some good in the world and other such things. No idea where that's going, but that's the start point for the next few years. We'll see where that leads. The last few years have been pretty interesting, so hopefully we can carry on.
Yeah, it has been an interesting time for all of us, hasn't it? Tech's obviously evolving and enabling us to work and continue to work, especially from home these days. And technology like this exists to help us to record a podcast, which is pretty cool. But it's always changing.
Well, I was writing this the other day that it's odd when we think that at the beginning of 2020, the idea that we would work from home, work remotely, and have these widely distributed businesses, it was a thing. And people did it, but most didn't. Most weren't interested in it. And I was bumbling around trying to get people to up their tech and get this kind of idea going and evolve and use the latest and greatest things that they could. And everybody's going, no, she'll be right, mate.
Yeah.
No worries. It's all good. And then suddenly the doors got closed. more done for digital transformation in that time in 6 months than an army of you and I could have done in our life.
Yeah, I agree.
I think it was just in March.
Yeah, probably just
in March of 2020. If you told us this,
bunch of highly frazzled tech guys desperately trying to roll out new networks and God knows what.
If you told us in February that we wouldn't have an office and we'd be permanently from home, we all would have said no.
Not going to happen,
And I don't want to go back to an office anymore.
Yeah, it's funny in retrospect, right? It was
strange how it happens.
A pretty scary time. It was. I know a number of my sort of entrepreneurial friends went from life's great, coming in through the new year, books are full, money's going to be coming in, world's wonderful, to
bang.
Right, so we've got no money then. Shit. What do we do? Lots of evolving business models. And you can tell, you know that the world's moving on because even lawyers now sign documents remotely.
Yes, lawyers, accountants have all changed the way they operate, which is brilliant to see.
DocuSign.
If there was a group who were just content with where they were in the status quo, it was the legal teams. But even they do it now. So well, the world's moved on.
I was just talking to a lawyer about how he's digitizing contracts and all that space. So yes, it is evolving and very quickly. So I think every industry has been impacted, and I think if we reflect, being in an office is, I think there's a massive benefit from a people culture perspective, but we can all operate at home. That's a given.
So they're interesting. I had some very interesting calls in the early days of COVID. You remember when all of the toilet roll was disappearing? For whatever, people were eating it or something. I don't know, but whatever was going on, and there was. I spoke with a guy in the US, and he was in his closet, literally in his closet in his bedroom, and behind him was a rack with all his wife's blouses and dresses hanging up, and on top were probably about 200 toilet rolls. So, that's the guy. He's got
crazy.
I think we had a couple people interview from their closet because it was the quietest room in the house.
Yeah, it's amazing. I went to buy a chair from Officeworks, and there weren't any. There were no chairs, no desks, nothing. People had such a desire to suddenly build an office for themselves at home that you couldn't buy a chair for love nor money.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had that problem with a printer. I went to about 7 different stores looking for a printer.
No, I've given up on printers. I don't buy them anymore. I print so little, I just drive up to Officeworks and get it done there.
It's for my kids at the moment, just coloring sheets.
Yeah, when they're doing school from home, it was a bit of a challenge. Oh, let's dig in a bit, Stu. Value around tech, around software, around business model transformation, all this space. That's one of the areas that we sort of honed in on last week. I'm talking about how we might deliver better value, and I think we came to the point of, obviously everyone talks about there's a problem to solve, and that's the way people sort of frame these things in this space.
What problem he is solving? Whose problem is it? And that's great, but everybody with a CRM is solving the same problems. And solving the same, the same for the same people, or they're niching on a particular vertical. So the way we can get a new perspective on what we do is to really clearly identify the value that we deliver, and some of those are really obvious. Everybody talks about efficiency and productivity and other such things. But when you start digging, I've got a list of about 30 that I've just put in the new book of ways in which software and technology can add greater value. And things like greater team cohesion, improved morale, better quality of team. And I was telling you the chicken story, I think, if I remember rightly, on Thursday.
Yeah, let's repeat the chicken story, because I actually enjoyed the chicken story. Yeah, go for it.
I did this I presented this at the ICC a few months ago, presenting about this sort of notion of value in business, and how having good technology keeps your team on side. And the analogy I use is chickens. And for simplicity, there's 2 types of chickens that ply their trade of laying eggs. There are the outdoor free-range chickens who go out and about and they scratch around the yard and they have a great time and they do chickeny things, whatever chickens do. And they peck around at the ground and pick up bugs and bits of grit. And life's good being a chicken, I guess. And at the end of the day, or at some point during their day, they lay an egg, and that's their day's work. Now, there are other chickens that are sit inside in little crates and don't have quite such a good time. They sit there, they look out a bit like the guy in the Matrix. And he looks out and they go, great big, chickens in every direction, right?
Battery.
These battery hens, they're having not the best of lives, all things considered, but they go about their day's work and they lay an egg. Now, they might pull a few feathers out, get a bit annoyed and not have as long a life and not have as good a time, but they still lay an egg. Now, what's notable about chickens is they don't have a choice. The chicken, sucks to be a chicken, right? Team members do. So if we're giving our team members a poor environment and poor tools to work with, then they're not going to stick around. They're going to leave. They're going to go and find somewhere better to ply their trade. And of course, the reality of it is that it's the good people that leave. Because the good people find it easier to get a new job. So we end up in this situation where the good people go, we're left with the not so good, and they're not as happy because they can't find a new job. They've still got rubbish tools to use, so morale drops, the quality of the team drops, productivity is going to drop. Happy workers are 12% more productive or something like that. According to Warwick University, I think that is the number. And this is this sort of fundamental notion about value for us. And we can continue that every time somebody leaves, if we have to replace a team member, depending on who you ask, is somewhere between 150 or 250% of remuneration to replace someone. So it's a very expensive business losing people. So there's great value then from any software platform if we can say that by putting good tools in place, we're saving recruitment costs, we're saving replacement costs, we're improving the quality of the team, and so on. So it's a very valuable notion.
There's a lot in that, and the story is really good because just if you frame it down, we're talking to people who are building technology, but in effect, they may be a part of the solution for employees, for business operation, for whatever it might be. There's an end result. And when we get to that point, someone's going to buy our technology for a reason of it's going to deliver value, or it's going to create a change, or it's going to make their lives better, whatever it might be, but there's going to be a perspective of that happening. So, there's quite an interesting take on the chicken story. I think there's a lot in that for just people who are employing people who have team members. I think about that and how you are looking after your people. But yeah, then when it gets to people who are delivering solutions to help people do better, make better, we generally make decisions on value. We are always looking for a better tomorrow, a better way of doing things, or a better scenarios. There's always a challenge that's going on in every business. I don't think there's any business doesn't have a challenge in front of them or around them. There's no just perfect business ticking along.
I imagine the day you walk into work as the boss and say, well,
yep,
that's it then. I've hit that sweet spot.
Yeah.
I've got just the right amount of technology, just the right amount of people. They're all trained. Everything's absolutely slick. I should sell right now.
Yes.
Sell the lot, take the money, walk out the door, because, I mean, the only way is down, right?
It's already too late once you've made the decision.
Yeah.
Things change.
I'm sure you guys have exactly the same experience, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you look at the development team, go, that's it now, they're good now, everything's done.
Yeah, everything's perfect, everything's swimmingly. And you're one of those moments in time of business where there is a nice little hum, but that does not there forever. As it evolves and changes, it might be there for a moment in time. Yes.
Yeah, they're generally fleeting. It's quite disappointing, really, isn't it? But that's life.
It is life.
But it is. I mean, when we start looking at value, the numbers add up extraordinarily. I mean, so the remuneration part, the cost of replacement is one, but the cost of saving a wage, which in Australia is $100,000 a pop, give or take. The average employee is $80,000 a year, I think, is that something like that. And by the time you annualize it and check on workers' comp and all the other bits and bobs, it comes out somewhere over 100,000. But for easy maths, 100,000 a time. So we get to articulate value as a vendor if we start looking at these big numbers, then the value of the platforms we build should demand a bigger price. I mean, this is so. I was just writing through pricing this morning as part of the book, and it occurs to me that so many of vendors out there are just not charging the right amount of money. And they do silly things, right? They look at what the competition's charging and go, well, that must be the right price. Mm-hmm. And I can't think of a greater way to lose money than to believe what anybody else has said. Because, I mean, how do we know that the other guy, so let's say I build another CRM, I'll join the throng of the thousands. And I look at other CRMs and I say, well, these ones are $60 a month. Well, that must be the right price. And it's like, well, I don't know. Is it? Can you survive on those customers at $60 a month? Mm-hmm. Or do you actually need to charge $200 a month because this is a really good CRM and it delivers massive value? If it delivers the value, then we should be able to charge for it. But of course, what we do is we look at somebody else and we go, oh, well,
yes,
I'm not going to get any business because they're only $60 a piece.
Yeah, it's easy to look at what's on the market. I think most people we speak to do that. What's some other ways you might think about that? Because calculating value and communicating it can be a bit of a challenge for people and they don't get their head around it. How do you frame it, Stu? What would you think about when you're looking at or actually calculating the value we are delivering as a platform or even potential to deliver? Because there's no guarantees in delivering.
It is difficult, and everybody has to form their own narrative. What's important is that they understand what's going on underneath. And look, even in the $60 an hour, $60 a piece sort of perspective, there's a reality of that, which is actually we have to get leads. We have to get people look, and if people are going to rule us out based on price straight away, then perhaps we need to come up with some kind of ascending model where we can get people in at a cheaper price. But the reality of it is, of course, that if we really take our time to sort of take a step back and look at what a platform does and the value that it delivers, then it'll be quite clear. It's interesting. One of the lessons that's come to me in the last 12 months is that customers generally know the value. I mean, there are some who don't, clearly, but a great many businesses, particularly if we're in B2B, they will already have identified the potential savings that they've got if they implement a solution. I mean, they're not just randomly buying software. And we see this with paid feature requests, for example. When, depending on the platform that you have, you may be able to say to some of your customers, well, if you want these new things, that's fine. If you pay us for them, then we'll do them as a priority, which is great. And one of the little sort of pragmatic ideas that's come forward in the last while is this idea that we would say, well, how much is it going to cost? And some project manager will, lick his finger, stick it in the air, and go, that's 15 hours of work. Now, I think in doing it for money, I think I said that my general rule of thumb for estimation was to think of a number and go, yeah, it's about that, and then double it and add some more for safety. That's a good way of project planning for me. It's wrong. It's always wrong, but I'm going to be wrong. I might as well be wrong big. The pragmatic approach to this, of course, is when we're saying, well, what's it going to cost? We say it's going to take 100 hours, and I'm going to charge you $500 an hour, let's say. So it's a $50,000 job to implement this feature. If a customer's asking for that, they've already identified that it's $50,000 worth of value. Mm-hmm. And then some. Well, they will have thought this is hundreds of thousands, 200, 300, whatever it might, millions of dollars of value. In which case, if we're only charging 50,000, we should charge 100,000.
You're not charging enough
because they've already identified the value, and 100,000 is just as good a value to them as 50,000. It's it's rats and mice money in the B2B space. So we have to be really careful not to undersell ourselves, and it's a common problem because we do. We don't value our own value. We don't estimate it properly.
I think the challenge in tech is we're similar to the clock on, clock off mentality, where we generally tech businesses charge by the hour, and then they estimate something, and this is what it's going to take to do, and this is what rate we charge, and that's what we're going to charge for it. If you're developing anything custom from a solution perspective. So I think getting out of that can be a little bit challenging if you've done that forever, and actually been in that space forever, just doing consulting type work, and all of a sudden we charge X amount per hour. Putting a value on terms of a dollar figure on it from a value perspective, it's a different thinking, and not many people do it. They all look at, all right, how do I look at an example? We're working with a group at the moment, won't name names, but they want to get into a market, so they undercut the market by 200%. And that is crazy, given the operational value that they're adding and the actual savings they will create for the businesses, not just in the technology, but also in the efficiencies. So it's interesting the way people think. Just need to get my product out there, but then you shoot yourself in the foot a little bit as well.
Well, yeah. I mean, look, undercutting is the race to the bottom, right? And there's only ever one winner in the race to the bottom, which is the guy who gets your customers for free when you go out of business. So I mean, the race to the bottom is something we should try to avoid. And I've talked on here before about the $5 app, which has just ruined it for everybody, because the man in the street now thinks now equates the app that he gets to deal with his whichever retailer he's dealing with, that's free. Yes. Or he paid $5 for some little utility. And he probably uses the utility in the app far more than he does his complex SaaS platform. And he only uses a tiny little bit of the complex SaaS platform. So his perspective on reality is just completely flawed. So it's incumbent on we clever people, I hope I'm clever people, we clever people in the tech industry to really dig deep on this and actually go and work out some numbers for people and help them really understand the value that's getting delivered. And particularly, and B2C space, this is really important, because otherwise we just end up with this mass market mentality, and that's there's a reason a great many SaaS businesses don't survive longer than 3 years.
I think I don't know I think what you said there, people don't spend the time to dig in and understand what the real value is to the end consumer and what the potential value of their product could be. We look at the competition, and that's where you start your pricing model from. That's what I hear all the time, and we've done it in the past, and that's where you would start. But yeah, I get your point on, let's just understand what we're doing for the customer first, and that's how we sell it and communicate it.
You need to use that as like a benchmark, though, just to see what everyone else is doing, to know what sort of angle you need to spin on your value proposition as well.
No, it's not about just, the comms.
It's that, so we'll drop $2 cheaper.
Yeah, it's how you communicate the value prop, yeah? Like, I think the CRM, you said, charging $60 a month, great, but what does that CRM do for the business, and how much money does it actually create for the business? That's probably where you want to spend your time.
There's a couple of things going on in this as well, which is we have a tendency in the tech world, because of how we build platform in the first place, to go out and go, we have these features. It's like, awesome. I'm a CRM. Are you a CRM? Yeah. Well, can you do CRM things? You bet your life I can. Can you do? Yeah, I can too. Awesome. So we're now right. So that's our model, right? We are A versus B. We are exactly the same thing. We have 10% overlap, or 10% where we're different, and 90% overlap. And yet we'll talk about the 90%. And both companies will talk about that. Well, what possible outcome is there going to be? And
I'm sure every CRM has those feature pages, and how we compare to the three main ones.
We've got these other features. Well, great. I bought a new car recently. I said this to you on Thursday, Andy, I think. I bought a new car recently. It's got 4 wheels, steering wheel, windscreen. It's got some seats, seat belts, some kind of noise sound system. The car I replaced had got all of those as well. I'm not sure why I bought a new car now. And this is this sort of simple perspective on it, isn't it? That when if all we're doing is looking at features and saying these features are worth this price per month, then we're immediately cheapening our own product. And then if we say, well, I'll undercut these guys because I want market share, then I make the whole thing even cheaper. So we kind of ruin it for everybody else as well. We're like the shit kid at the party. It turns up, it ruins it for everybody else by giving away for free.
Yeah, that happens. It does happen in the space where you have products that come in and then they keep undercutting, and then people expect cheaper. And I think the Findable App story makes perfect sense. People expect everything for free and everything to work for free, or to work for very little, and they're getting millions of dollars of technology, and they don't really get the understanding of that what's behind this actual technology that's being put in front of me.
The millions of dollars thing is a really crucial point, right? So one of my standard stories on this is this idea. You say to somebody, well, we've got this platform, we'd love to sell it to you. It's $1 million. And they go, $1 million is a lot of money. So you buy it outright, $1 million today. That's it. Ooh, like somebody's just taking the car to the garage. It's like you've got the guy going, he's going, and you sit there and you go, well, hang on a minute, $1 million, big money. But remember that employee that's $100,000 a pop?
Yes.
If you had one of those for the next 10 years, there's your $1 million. Would you get the same value as the software platform? And of course, the answer is invariably no. Of course you wouldn't. Well, how many employees would it take? Would it take 3, 4, 5, 10, 20, 50? And of course, very quickly you get to the idea that it might be as good as 10 people, in which case your $1 million spend has got a $10 million value.
Mm.
And when you start putting it in big fat numbers like that, then it's it makes a very big difference to the sales model and the sales questions that you ask. It doesn't work all the time, though, incidentally. I presented this as a notion at UNSW. It was Sydney University, to the I forget which group it was now, but young business manager types, young up and coming professionals, and so Masters of Management was the course. And they've got young people from all over the world are in the course. Yeah, brilliant place, fantastic time. And I mentioned this, and a very nice Indian young gentleman put his hand up and he said, "Doesn't always work." He said, "When my dad, with his factory in India, wants to move some stuff, he doesn't send a forklift. He just puts 3 guys on the back of the truck." So, this notion that wages are this big save isn't always the case. It doesn't always. The model doesn't always work.
Where you are. Yeah, it depends on the country you're in as well and what their costs and everything are. But having, like that SaaS app, you can undercut the market depending on where you're making your money. You're not necessarily going to make it from the revenues if you've got a different business model where you can drive and change the whole market.
And this is why it's really important that if we're delivering a SaaS platform, and particularly in the B2B space, that we start looking at the services we can wrap around the technology and turning it, rather than just a straight SaaS play, into a service model where I'm going to sell you the platform, it's going to deliver the functionality. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring some people in who are going to embed it properly in your business. We'll get some training, we'll have some evangelists on site, and how we do these implementation models. And they can be far more lucrative than the platform itself.
Yeah. So as an example, like you think about Uber, all right, I think it took them like 10 or 12 years to actually become profitable. And they spent billions of dollars building the infrastructure. If they just copied the taxi model, they would have been profitable from the start because they're just issuing cars to go and get people. But the infrastructure, the app that you just use for free that does everything, is the value to the business, but they don't charge for it.
Nope.
And it took so long for the taxis to try and catch up and make their own apps to do anything similar.
Because the interesting thing with Uber is that the app isn't, as brilliant as the app is, it's a job scheduling thing, right? I mean, that's largely what it does. So the great value for Uber is that it improves the lives of the people involved. This is where the value. This is really where the value of Uber comes from, is because taxi drivers don't have people thrown up in the back. They don't get ripped off. People don't do a runner. Similarly, the people getting in know who the driver is. It's all paid. Their credit card isn't going to get ripped off, and it's a great improvement for all the humans involved. The technology, the fact that you can stand on the side of the street and watch a little car on the map, it's kind of cool. I like that.
But I don't think people realize the billions of dollars that have gone into that infrastructure, and they're like pioneering brand new tech that hasn't been done before at scale that they're doing.
I find it quite fascinating.
They're at the frontier.
The way we talk about Uber today when it sort of first came out. I'm not going to get in the back of a car for a stranger, but as it's evolved now, it's actually now it's not
nothing stranger than some of the cab drivers.
I know, but as it sort of came out, it's
the same. You're not going to go on holiday in someone else's house.
Yeah, correct. There's a reluctance there.
Why would you go on holiday in somebody else's home? I mean, they must live in an awful environment when they're there, because people do, right?
Yep.
Again, but this is back to this idea that if we get past the technology itself and actually just look at the value and what we're really delivering, I'm selling you my home for a week. Come and live in my home. I won't be there. You can pay me a few $100s to bugger off, or you can come and live in a B&B and I'll just give you one room to stay in. So the value is a lot more. Often financial, but often emotional as well. And that's a really crucial point, that we have to get into, the idea that somebody it may tug at somebody's heartstrings if we offer the right outcome to them.
You need to understand what you're providing and be able to communicate that out.
Got to dig deep.
So then your customers can understand. If you can't communicate it, then it's not going to go anywhere. Then you are just solely competing on price.
Features and price.
You're selling drill bits. I mean, the classic drill bit analogy. They said people don't buy a drill bit; they buy the hole. So you go off to Bunnings, and you get to come back with a drill bit. So you put a hole in the wall because you wanted to put a hole. That's why you bought the drill bit. But of course, if we're going to extend the idea properly, then we didn't actually buy the drill bit to put a hole in. What we did is let's put it in a classic 2.4 children model, where hubby says to the wife, "Hey, would you like me to put up a shelf in the lounge so we can put our pictures on it?" And wifey says, yeah, that'd be great. That's why he bought the drill bit. He bought the drill bit so he could put up the shelf to get kudos from his wife. So we extend this analogy much, much further, and suddenly we're into the emotional side of things where somebody has done something because there is a greater good beyond the physical act of drilling a hole.
That's when we focus on what the outcome is, right? What's the end benefit of the product? Where people don't buy a CRM, they buy a solution they believe is going to help them get more sales or more value for their customers or more conversations or tracking of that or lost data. What are they really buying it for?
Yeah, CRMs are interesting. So there's, I forget, there's something like between $5 and $8.
Yeah.
If you use a CRM effectively, for every dollar that you invest, you get something like $5 to $8 back.
And I think the key thing you just said, effectively, because a lot of people buy tech and don't use it very effectively.
Well, implementation's everything, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's if we take technology back to my usual example of a digging stick.
Yes.
Yeah, the earliest of human technologies, which is a piece of wood with a fire hardened end for digging up roots. If I turn it around and try and use the fat end, I don't get fed quite as well. Mm-hmm. So we have to use the tool the way it's designed to be used. I was going to say something else. I forgot what it was now, but it's No, it's gone. I forgot what I was going to say.
So let's dig in. Why are you writing a new book?
Okay, so I started it end of 2020, in the middle of COVID.
Okay.
Because nobody was spending money on people like me.
Got it.
Much to my annoyance.
Something productive to do then.
Mid-November, and it was the run up to Christmas, and I was thinking, well, I'm not going to generate any revenue this time of year. I'm not going to do any business. I might just as well use the time productively. And I, thought, well, okay, I'll sit down and start writing. And so I when I wrote Doing It, it was really the book I could write at the time. I wanted to write a book. And so I wrote about everything I knew, which was this wider notion, I suppose, of the IT industry, the value of technology, and this kind of idea. And then over the following years, my focus became sharper on software and SaaS specifically. And so I thought, well, okay, well, if I'm going to write the next book, then I need to sharpen that focus and make it about software. And what's interesting is that since I started it, so because I put it down from sort of end of 2020, I put it down for a year and a bit while I was out and about doing other things. And I've come back to it, and my opinion and knowledge and experience has evolved more since I started. So I've actually gone back and reworked some of it. And what I'm now trying to angle into it is the idea of using technology and this massive connectivity we have with disparate people around the world, that we can use it to make a big difference. And we can embed good and doing good. And, we have things like the 1% giving sort of stuff and B1, G1 and all of these different ideas and rounding up, I think we were talking about earlier, all of these ways in which we can give small amounts of money, but if we do it at massive enough scale, then we can make enormous differences. And we can give huge amounts of money to charity or invest in whatever we want to invest in. So that's really where this book is coming from, is firstly, how do I get into the world of technology? How do I build platform? And that might be whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're a software developer who thinks, gosh, I know I can write some software, I can make $1. I can make the next Flappy Birds or whatever it might be. Or whether you're a business leader. And there's, we have to remember that there's a massive amount of software being written within organizations. And the reality of that is that they are essentially internal SaaS people. They're delivering exactly the same requirements, exactly the same outcomes. And their marketing just happens to be internal rather than external. But they're going through these similar processes. So it's really a book about if you are a business leader, if you are in the business of making software, how do you go about it? How do you make sure it stays alive? Yeah, because I mean, the last thing any business wants is Sheila in accounts to go out and get herself a no-code tool, spend God knows how long knocking up a platform, and then resign. Because she made this thing, it's worked for her for 12 months, and then off she goes. And
no one else knows anything.
Yeah,
about
it's
it.
all gone dead. Yeah, so we had this sort of this bizarre shadow IT kind of ideas. So we need business leaders need to be as familiar with technology and software creation as they are with finance. The two are fundamental to business today. So it's really about that. It's educational as much as anything else. And hopefully people will read it and think I know what I'm on about. That would be nice too.
That's always a benefit, isn't it? I think the
I'd enjoy that.
Does help,
get some more speaking gigs off the back of it and maybe some work. Yeah?
No, brilliant. But I think the notion around giving good and some components of that, I think you're floating some concepts around that. I do have to Start Some Good. I'll introduce you to the guys from Start Some Good. I don't know if you've met them. They were on our podcast a little while back, and it's a platform which is all.
I know Start Some Good.
Oh, you do? Yeah.
I'm forgetting his name. Got to be.
I'm trying to find it. Yes, I think it's a Tom. Yes, I'm trying to find his name too as
Tom.
we're chatting. So you know him. Yeah, I think someone like him would make a lot of sense to collaborate with and do a little bit around that, because he's predominantly a SaaS platform which enables connection of businesses and I think capital raising and a few different and promoting their good venture product in terms of they've got a community component to them or some sort of giving component to them. So I find it fascinating how he started all that up, and I think there's quite
Tom
a bit.
Tom Dawkins, that's his name.
That's his name.
Remember now?
Yep.
Yeah, that's the one.
And he's got the big beard. His photo on LinkedIn at the time.
Big beard.
Very big beard, yes, down to his chest. Nice guy though, but I think
he's very nice, Tom.
Yeah. So in terms of the book, when are you expecting to release it?
I'm hoping to finish off first draft at the end, probably next 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay.
So I'm about 42,000 words in, so 65-ish. I'm aiming for around that.
Yeah.
That should be a couple of weeks' work or so. Then some poor saps will proofread it. Obviously, you won't, Andy, because it won't be in voice form by then. So I know you only listen to books rather than read them. So I'll get somebody to go through it. Then I'll read it again and make some changes. Then I'll read it again. Then it will go to the editor. He or she will trash it because they do. Then I'll read it again.
Yes. So it'll be next year sometime.
then it'll go back to the editor again. It'll come back typeset, and I'll read it again.
Yeah.
Once I've read it about 6 times, so it would be nice to think it would be wrapped up by Christmas, ready to launch in the new year. I would think.
Oh, very good.
That would.
Yeah. It's a process, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah, it takes quite a bit of time.
And I've put my hand up for the Business Book Awards this year again, which means, and they're coming up any time in the next couple of weeks, so I may have to read 5 other books.
Brilliant.
Which,
going to keep you nice and busy. Very good.
For those playing along at home, I was going to say episode 56 with Tom Dawkins.
Yes.
If anyone wants to go and listen to that one.
Yeah, with the Start Some Good. Yeah, if you want to go have a listen to that in terms of how they're framing a platform to deliver good through the community, I think it's not only tech products, they are a tech business, but they help across all different angles. In terms of you, Stu, question I always look at, why do you do what you do? What drives you? What's the passion? What's behind you in terms of who you are, and why do you get up and write a book, for example?
I kind of feel like I ought to be embarrassed by saying this, but I'm not. I absolutely love it. I love this industry, and for whatever reason, I'm a natural educator. I want to give information. I want to share what I know with people, and I as a kid wanted to be a teacher. That was my dream in life as a young.
You are a great storyteller, so it does work.
a young child, but unfortunately, myself and academia aren't best pals. This whole learning thing, and study and doing exams wasn't for me.
Yeah.
So whilst I was in the top few percent of the county at age 11, went off to the local grammar school. It came to HSC equivalent in the UK, and it was like, yeah. And did I want to go off to university and do a degree? Not really.
Not really.
I just wanted to go and get my hands dirty, and I ended up doing a TAFE equivalent course, sort of vocational training, and I got into an industry that suddenly, when I got my first job in software, my first job was with an insurance company, waiting for the person in front of me to die to move forward. It was one of those classic old businesses. And I got a job in. We happened to be using Lancer at the insurance company, and because I knew it, I got offered a job with the vendor at Lancer, and it was kind of like day 4 sort of thing. And they said, "Well, what do you think?" It's like, "Oh, you want my opinion? Settle down. Here we go." And suddenly realised I was very much at home.
Yeah.
So I've gone through this process of I'm in an industry that I love. I mean, I can't think of a more exciting place to be spending my time. We are, as I'm sure have said before, and certainly to many others, in the middle of the most extraordinary revolution that we've known as a species. We are industry 4, whatever number they're calling it this week. We have technology that is just evolving at breakneck speed. Quantum computing looks like it's actually going to be a thing, not just some sort of fanciful ideal. And everything we know is going to change. If we look at Australia, we have something between 700 and a million people needed, 700,000 and a million people needed in the IT industry over the next 7 or 8 years.
It's a small number, isn't it? Where are they going to come from? Correct. Yes.
Well, we have something like 4,500 graduates in IT
per annum.
Year.
You said, I thought that was such a low number.
And all of those go into the business. I mean, a lot of those will go off and do non-technical roles off the back of it. So, we have this huge need for people. We have an industry that is desperate to get moving. Happily, we have a new government and a new minister in Ed Husic who looks like he's going to be a really good advocate for us. So it's a really exciting place to be. I'm in the middle of career 2.1 at the moment. I'm just starting career 2.1, and I'm hoping this will keep me going for the next 20 years or so.
Definitely exciting place to be, and you're seeing the amount of change that's happened since COVID effectively, and it just keeps compounding in terms of change that's getting thrown at us. What the next 10 years holds, the low code, no code angles and all the bits and pieces around tech and what's going to change there. It's, a little bit mind-boggling to thinking where we might end up.
I think it's not even that. It's going to be more of the IoT and the electronic side that'll push things a lot faster and further. Frightener.
I mean, if you want to hack into a system, just go look for IoT devices. I mean, the least secure nonsense ever on a network. There was
there's stories of people hacking through vending machines to get into networks, I believe.
There's
all sorts of stuff
scanners,
like that.
Ultrasound scanners in hospitals.
Hacking into
which
those.
are always plugged into networks because they have to move these big pictures. But I mean, they might just as well have a big sign saying "insert here." I mean, they're terrible. I forget the story about it, but that was one of the examples that I remember. That's how they got in. There's an example in my first book about a guy before Wi-Fi was a thing. Before all businesses had Wi-Fi, some guy went out, bought himself a laptop. Wanted to just use it on Wi-Fi, so he went up to the local JB Hi-Fi or wherever it was and bought a wireless router. Walked in, plugged it into the network with a physical cable, done, happy days, right? No problem. I mean, no security. Just opened up the whole of his corporate network to whoever.
Everybody.
And it just so happened that somebody went, that's handy, and was sucking data off the network for weeks. It's a scary world. It's the Wild West again. It's kind of like the early days of the internet. We've now got the early days of IoT.
I think the technology space always drives the wild, wild west, from what you can see. It seems to be driving new evolutions of that, the crypto space, this space, that space. There's plenty of it going on around us because it's new, right? It's cutting edge, whatever component of it, never been done before. And there's no sort of precedence. There's none as to how it should operate.
You're just about old enough to remember the early days of internet banking.
Yeah.
And people were petrified.
They were.
Absolutely scared. I'm not doing that online.
Yeah, correct. Now everyone does it on their app, on their phone.
Yeah, how do you survive without it online now? Well, you can't. I mean, all of our local branches
There's no branches open. Yes, correct. You might be lucky to stumble across a branch.
They've all turned. I was going to say they've all turned into Starbucks, but they haven't turned into Starbucks because they didn't do so well. But
no, not in Oz.
they're probably a Guzman y Gomez or something like that. They're fast food places now.
No, brilliant, Stu. In terms of what's next year and beyond look like for you? I know you're in some roles looking around. I know you consult quite a bit to SaaS businesses in terms of how they might evolve their businesses, product, etc. If someone wants to reach out and talk about that, how might they get in contact?
Well, the easiest place to find me is LinkedIn. That's just as long as you spell my first name correctly, which is STEW, so the correct spelling of Stewart, as I like to tell everyone. You can find me on LinkedIn. I do have a mediocre website, which is very mediocre. But by far and away, the easiest is LinkedIn. Or in fact, just put me into Google, and I turn up quite quickly.
And who do you like to work with? Because that's always important. Like, who's a perfect client for you?
It's evolving. And I'm increasingly interested now in businesses that want to be different and want to make their mark.
Okay, got it.
Which is back to this idea of embedding good and an impact at scale. Because there are a lot of SaaS businesses, and this is something, and I don't understand this, and I'm working my way around this. I don't understand why. If you are in business and you have the opportunity to speak to thousands and thousands of people, hundreds of thousands, whether it's through directors, customers, or through employees of your clients, if you have that scale available, you have an opportunity. And I'm really interested in businesses that are interested in using that opportunity and want to be different. And the funny thing is, when we talk about this sort of notion of a purposeful business, and business is now, being purposeful is the new gold standard. Not so long back, if you had a purpose statement, you did okay. Now you have to be purposeful, which is a whole nother layer of intrigue and effort. But it's absolutely paramount for any business today, because we've spent the last 20 years or so teaching our younger generation that doing good is a good thing, and looking after the planet is a good thing, and helping others is a good thing, and all this kind of idea. So it's good for the bottom line to be a purposeful business. And we see this in the available stats from public businesses, that those who are purposeful businesses outperform businesses with a purpose statement by a significant margin. And businesses with a purpose statement outperform businesses that don't have one. And again, by a significant margin. And the reason is that people want to work there. And they'll work for less money.
Yeah, they track
believe it or not.
Yeah.
If it's a good business and it provides a decent environment and it does some good, then a lot of the younger generation coming through will rather work there for less than some big business that will pay them well but is shitty. So I'm very much interested in that space and getting into how I can help those businesses really evolve and get their product out there and get their message out there and their model out there so that they can make a real difference.
Oh, brilliant, sure.
And the benefit of the scale thing, of course, is that if you've got 10,000 employees, if they give $1 a week,
that's up pretty quickly. Yeah, doesn't it? Does that up pretty quickly.
Very quickly.
This is stuff that you can do and you can make a big difference. And if you have that opportunity, it seems to me that you absolutely should.
Yeah, I think we're only here for a short amount of time, and we can grab, or give a little. And I think it's important for us to, as a society, to reflect on what's not working, because only at big numbers and big capacity can we make a real difference. I think one person with a lot of money behind them can make a difference if they choose to, but 10 million people with $1 behind them can make a big difference. So thinking at scale is the way we need to go as a society in these particular areas. I think that's how we drive change.
And when we look at from a software point of view, it is the common thread that connects us all, and it doesn't matter whether we're from, in my case, the leafy North Shore and the relatively affluent suburbs, or whether I'm from the southwest of Sydney and whatever else. We're scraping along. That we very often find ourselves using exactly the same things. They're great level. Software is a great leveler. And we can all be involved. We can all make a difference.
On that note, Stewart, thanks for joining us once again on the DevReady Podcast. Always a pleasure just to talk through where you're at and some of the philosophies behind where you stand these days. So, and looking forward to when the book comes out. So let us know. We'll share it out to the community and promote them out. Love the title. Yes, when the book comes out, let us know. We'll talk through some of the detail of the name of the book. Kick Some SaaS, I believe it was.
Kick Some SaaS.
Looking forward to it. Yeah. And I will read it. I did read your other book, actually. The paperback. I read the thing. So I enjoyed the tonality through it. Yes, I did read it a long time ago.
Excellent. Thank you, Andrew.
Oh, yeah. Your personality came right through the book because, yeah. Yes.
I'll take that as flattery and say thank you very much.
No, you're welcome, Stuart. No, I appreciate it, mate. But thanks for joining us again, and we'll speak to you soon on DevReady. Thanks.
Magic.
Cheers, Stuart.
Thank you, guys.